I was perched on the sidewalk curb, munching on barbecue skewers, when I ran into Brandon's brother, Marcus. He scrutinized me, looking me up and down several times before disdainfully speaking. Grace, you left Brandon back then just to live this kind of life? Let me give you some well-meant advice. Quit while you're ahead. Brandon knows you're back in the country and specifically sent me to tell you. In 7 days, at the hotel, he'll give you the engagement party you deserved, so stop making a fuss. 5 years ago, Brandon fled our engagement party because of a call from his childhood sweetheart, Chloe, leaving me to face everyone alone. Chloe's sick. I need to take her to the hospital now. You handle things here and wait for me patiently. Watching leave without a second thought, I swallowed my tears and, right then and there, changed the engagement party into a farewell party. I agreed to the corporation's demand that I go abroad. Unexpectedly, no sooner had I returned than an acquaintance ran into me, thinking I was still holding a candle for him. So I turned around and pulled up my son, Leo, who had been squatting behind me, also enjoying barbecue skewers, and said indifferently, Leo, someone wants to be your stepdad. What do you think, son? Marcus's eyes widened, then he scoffed coldly. Grace, is this your new trick? Just find some random kid and claim he's your son. I looked at Marcus and couldn't help but roll my eyes. Marcus, did you leave your brain at home, or are you just blind? Can't you see how much he looks like me? If he's not my son, whose is he, yours? How could you possibly expect me to still care for Brandon after the disgusting thing he did 5 years ago? That I'd still be pining for him. At the mention of what happened 5 years ago, a flicker of guilt clearly crossed Marcus's face. That's different. Chloe was sick, Brandon just took her to the hospital. Noticing discomfort, I said coldly, couldn't she call 911 herself, or did everyone else in the world die, leaving only Brandon to take her? Marcus, you and I both know what Chloe was really trying to do. I'm not a tool for your games. Seeing me about to leave, Marcus quickly blocked my way. Grace, but you liked Brandon so much back then. You put up with so much for him so many times. What's one more time? I dropped the fried skewers I was holding, scooped Leo up into my arms, and said, you yourself said back then. And the one thing I dislike most is dwelling on the past. Ignoring, I picked up Leo and walked straight away. It wasn't until we were in the car that Leo tugged on my hand curiously and asked, Mom, is that Brandon guy you were talking about Dad's most hated person? I let out a soft scoff, pinching his cheek. He's not even worthy of being Dad's most hated person. Leo, don't just guess. He has nothing to do with your mom. In the past, I would never have been able to casually say I had no relation to Brandon. I was born into the estate. Unfortunately, my father was a womanizer, and my mother passed away early. As the least favored daughter, no matter how outstanding I was, my only value was in a marriage alliance. Everything changed when I unexpectedly saved Brandon. He appeared by my side under the guise of repaying a favor, openly deterring anyone who tried to use me, including my father. The estate, pressured by Brandon, no longer dared to make demands of me. I was finally able to study and attend school according to my own wishes, pursuing my interest in finance. Brandon doted on me endlessly. To get me to say yes to his confession, he even covered the entire Eastwick University lawn with flowers. Grace, be my girlfriend. I promise I'll make you the happiest woman in the world in this lifetime. I emotionally accepted his confession, naively believing we would live happily ever after like in a fairy tale. Until his childhood sweetheart, Chloe, returned to the country. Brandon started breaking promises to me, repeatedly giving me the cold shoulder and arguing with me. Later, our relationship became increasingly strained, and Brandon took the initiative to reconcile. Grace, let's get engaged. I'll prove to you with my actions that you're the only one I love. I believed Brandon's words and meticulously prepared for our engagement party. But I never expected that Brandon would abandon me publicly at the engagement party because of a call from Chloe, making me the laughingstock of everyone there. It was precisely for this reason that I was forced to leave the country. To my surprise, 5 years later, Brandon still thought I would wait for him. The car quickly arrived at the entrance of the estate. After 5 years apart, everything seemed no different from before. As soon as I entered the living room with Leo, the two people before me immediately made me freeze, Brandon and Chloe. What are you two doing here? Sensing the hostility in my tone, Arthur quickly reprimanded me. Disobedient daughter, what kind of talk is that? Mrs., of course, here to discuss the engagement party with Mr. Brandon. As for you, what's the meaning of bringing a child back out of nowhere? Chloe, who was standing nearby, couldn't help but sneer. What else could it be? She just knows Brandon is willing to get engaged to her and feels emboldened. Now she's deliberately brought a child to provoke Brandon. Hearing about this so-called engagement party again, I couldn't help but look at Arthur angrily. Arthur, are you senile? You tricked me into coming back to the country with my mother's keepsakes, just to make me get engaged to this scoundrel again? Didn't you make enough of a fool of yourself 5 years ago? Do you want to do it again? Hearing this, Arthur's face stiffened. Brandon stood up, his gaze on me showing a hint of joy. Then he suppressed his emotions and began to explain. Grace, I know I was wrong back then. But I already explained to you, it was only for a little while. If you hadn't suddenly run off abroad back then, how could this engagement party have dragged on until now? I couldn't be bothered to listen to Brandon's nonsense. I simply grabbed Leo's hand and said, Brandon, I'm not in the mood to play your prodigal son act. I originally thought Marcus had told you, but since he didn't, I'll tell you myself. I've been married for years, and my kid is old enough to run errands. As for that engagement party, you can find whoever you want, just don't come looking for me. Arthur's face changed drastically. He clearly hadn't expected me to get married and have a child without a word, and he was so furious that he clutched his chest and cursed, disobedient daughter. How could the estate produce someone as shameless as you? Oh, when it comes to shamelessness, how could anyone compare to you? I sneered, glancing sideways at Arthur. When you were young, you built your fortune on my mother, and now that you're old, you're selling your daughter to secure your wealth. Arthur, without women, you're useless. If you try to trick me with my mother's keepsakes again, don't blame me for being merciless. With that, I didn't want to get tangled up with them any longer. I grabbed Leo's hand and prepared to leave. Just as I was about to step out of the living room, Brandon suddenly spoke up. Your uncle didn't lie to you. The keepsakes are just with me. I can give them to you, on the condition that you obediently get engaged to me. No longer able to control the rage in my heart, I rushed over and slapped Brandon hard across the face. Brandon, are you incapable of understanding plain speech? I'm already married with kids. Or do you, like Marcus, think this child isn't mine? But his last name is Taylor. Brandon stared at me, his gaze filled with an intensity one couldn't comprehend. I've already checked, his name is Leo. Grace, you've never moved on from me either, have you? Hearing such absurd words, I almost laughed in disbelief. Brandon, what on earth are you thinking? Leo's last name is Taylor because his biological father's last name is Taylor. It has nothing to do with you. My husband and I are very much in love. This time, returning to the country, we are indeed planning to have another wedding here. Please don't flatter yourself. Seeing that Brandon was determined not to return my mother's keepsakes, I didn't want to argue and prepared to leave. But just as I turned around, I was suddenly struck hard on the back of my neck. In the last moment before losing consciousness, I saw Leo anxiously running towards me. When I woke up again, I was in a completely unfamiliar room. Seeing I was awake, Leo immediately threw himself into my arms. Mom, you're finally awake. You scared Leo so much. Seeing his tear-stained face, I quickly hugged him close to comfort him. It's okay, Mom's here. They didn't do anything to you, did they? Leo shook his head, his face contorted in a bitter expression, and said, that bad uncle asked me some questions. Leo didn't say anything, just that Dad loves Mom very much, and Mom loves Dad very much too. And to tell that bad uncle to let us go quickly. Mom, I miss Dad. Seeing his pitiful expression, I hugged him tightly and said, your sister's surgery isn't over yet, and Dad still has some things to handle on his end. Once everything is taken care of, Dad will come find us. Lily's illness wasn't a minor issue, and recently there'd been a mole within the corporation. Julian was probably swamped, and if he knew about this and lost his head and made a mistake that could be used against him, it wouldn't be good. Just as I was saying this, the room door suddenly opened. I instinctively grabbed Leo's hand, but the person who came in wasn't Brandon. Chloe scrutinized me, and after a while, she spoke. Grace, you truly are a persistent ghost. Since you left the country 5 years ago, why come back now? I looked at the resentful Chloe before me and scoffed. Who would have thought that even after 5 years, Brandon still won't marry you? Chloe, you're still so useless. Hearing this, Chloe immediately became enraged. Grace, what are you so smug about? If I could stop your engagement 5 years ago, I naturally can do it again 5 years later. Don't even dream of marrying Brandon. Seeing his confident demeanor, I couldn't help but say impatiently, then hurry up and do it. I'm a married woman now. Do you really think I care about Brandon? Chloe, furious, raised her hand, ready to strike me. Just at that crucial moment, Brandon suddenly appeared and reprimanded her. Chloe, what are you doing? Hearing this, Chloe quickly pulled back her hand, then looked deeply wronged and said, Brandon, I was originally trying to persuade her to go through with the engagement with you, but then she started saying her husband was 1,000 times better than you. And she kept belittling you everywhere. I just couldn't stand it. Having heard similar words many times before, the old me would have certainly tried every way to explain myself. But now, I actually hoped Chloe would exaggerate even more, ideally provoking Brandon enough to abandon his absurd idea of getting engaged to me. I looked at Brandon and said without hesitation, she's right, and you'd better make sure she stays away from me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being heavy-handed and hurting your dear Chloe. Unexpectedly, Brandon's expression clearly showed anger, but he didn't lash out. Chloe, this is between Grace and me. Since doesn't like you, you shouldn't come anymore. Hearing this, Chloe was about to speak, but under Brandon's gaze, she reluctantly left. After left, Brandon took a deep breath and said, Grace, I know you said that on purpose just now. You're not that kind of person. That kind of person? I murmured those words, tilting my head. Brandon, wasn't that all you said back then? You said I was vicious, had a twisted mind, was petty, and couldn't understand your pure friendship. Chloe was kind, generous, and considerate. Have you forgotten all that now? I just don't understand. If she's so great, why don't you marry her? Why insist on marrying me, someone who is already married, here? If you still don't believe Leo is my biological child, you're welcome to get a paternity test. Before I could even finish, Brandon suddenly rushed over and grabbed my throat. No. I don't believe it. You loved me so much back then, how could you marry someone else so easily? I struggled to breathe as he choked me, frantically hitting Brandon's hand. Seeing like this, Leo simply bit his hand hard. The pain made Brandon release his grip, and he instinctively flung Leo away. I had just caught my breath when I saw Leo, unconscious after hitting the table, and my heart clenched. Brandon, have you gone mad? Brandon shoved me back onto the bed, then scooped up Leo. You're right, I am mad. In this lifetime, you can only be mine, Brandon's. In 6 days, it won't be an engagement party, it will be a wedding. So what if you got married abroad? It doesn't stop you from tying the knot with me here in the country. Grace, if you don't want anything to happen to your son, be good. With that, Brandon carried Leo directly out of the room. Brandon seemed determined to marry me, immediately announcing the news of our wedding to the entire city. I originally wanted to talk to Brandon again, but no matter what I said, he refused to see me. Aside from the housekeepers who brought meals, Brandon wouldn't allow me to see anyone else. I could only find out about Leo's condition through videos. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was our wedding day. The makeup artist and stylist arrived early to help me get ready. I was forcibly changed into a wedding gown, and, like a puppet, meticulously dressed and sent to the banquet hall. After not seeing him for a few days, Brandon seemed exceedingly happy, in stark contrast to my reluctance. Grace, I told you. You would marry me. Just then, a house keeper rushed in and said, It's bad news. The young master is throwing a tantrum, demanding his mom. He just passed out. Hearing this, I eagerly grabbed Brandon's hand. Leo is having an episode. Take me to him quickly. Seeing the genuine urgency on my face, Brandon still took me to see Leo. The moment I saw Leo, I quickly took out the medicine I had on me and gave it to him, then reprimanded them. What are all these people doing here? Everyone, get out. Brandon was clearly somewhat reluctant, but one of the housekeepers said, Mr. Brandon, why don't I stay and take care of Mrs. Taylor and the young master? Once the young master is better, I'll take Mrs. Taylor to the banquet hall. Brandon's gaze was heavy, but in the end, he agreed. Once I confirmed they had all left, I immediately closed the curtains and quickly swapped clothes with the maid. Once I'm out, I'll cover all of your mother's medical expenses. I apologize for putting you through this now. With that, I directly raised my hand and knocked the maid unconscious, then put Leo into a large case nearby, and rushed outside. Just as I was about to reach the exit, Brandon, who should have been in the banquet hall, suddenly appeared before me. Grace, you're trying to leave me again, aren't you? Seeing suddenly appear, I backed away repeatedly. Brandon, I told you I'm already married. And you even know my husband, he's, enough. Brandon interrupted me and immediately ordered someone to grab Leo from inside the large case. Is it because of this child? I remember you saying you loved children the most. If this child wasn't here, would you just be obedient? Men, throw him down. Hearing this, I immediately struggled violently. Brandon, stop it. Stop it now. If anything happens to Leo, I won't forgive you even in death. But no matter how much I cursed, Brandon remained unmoved. Just as Leo was about to be thrown, a wooden club struck the man's leg directly. "Let's see who dares touch my son." The phony liar voice made me look sideways. Leo, who had fallen out, immediately cried out upon seeing the newcomer, "Dad. Leo and Mom finally waited for you." Upon hearing that Dad, Brandon's face changed dramatically, and the grip on my hand loosened considerably. I took the opportunity to break free and ran directly towards Julian. "Why are you here? How's Lily? Is okay?" Julian pulled me into a hug, then looked me up and down before asking, "Grace, he didn't hurt you, did he?" Before I could speak, Brandon, from behind me, gritted his teeth and said, "You too, aren't you going to give me an explanation?" Hearing this, Julian pulled me closer into his embrace and scoffed coldly. "An explanation? Brandon, you're the one who owes an explanation. Why did you kidnap your aunt and cousin?" Chloe and the others, who had also arrived, were all stunned to hear this. "Julian, how can you be Grace's husband?" Arthur's face changed even more dramatically, and he obsequiously stepped forward and said, "Grace, that your husband is Mr. Julian, why didn't you mention it? If you had said something earlier, none of this would have happened, right?" I looked at Arthur with a faint smile that wasn't a smile and pressed him. "Did you even give me a chance to speak? I had barely arrived at the estate and said a few words before you knocked me out and took me away. Arthur, do you realize you're aiding in a crime?" Hearing this, Arthur's legs immediately gave out, and he eagerly explained, "An accident, it was truly just an accident." "Grace, you must listen to my explanation." "Enough." I interrupted impatiently and reprimanded him. "I'm not interested in your nonsense. Let us deal with the current situation first." Brandon was utterly provoked and rushed forward, saying, "Grace, but you're my fiancé. Not for 5 years now." Julian kicked him away, scoffing, "Now, she's my wife. She's Julian's wife, Mrs. Taylor of the Taylor family. And you, a stray dog cast out of the Taylor family, what GHT do you have to yell in front of me? Cast out of the Taylor family?" My eyes widened as I looked at Brandon. No wonder Brandon hadn't connected Leo and Julian. It turned out he'd been cast out of the Taylor family and had no idea about their affairs. Brandon took a deep breath and looked at me, saying, "Grace, I need an explanation. This isn't real, is it? You know Julian and I are sworn enemies, how could you be with him?" Seeing stubborn delusion, I looked directly at Julian and said, "Julian, didn't you bring our marriage certificate with you? Show him." The moment I said that, Julian immediately pulled out the marriage certificate we obtained abroad and opened it, saying, "Brandon, look closely. From now on, you'll either call Grace Aunt, or you'll call her Mrs. Taylor. Either way, it's best you stop calling her Grace." The moment he clearly saw the marriage certificate, Brandon stumbled back a few steps, then suddenly realized. "Julian, I don't believe this is a coincidence. Was it you? Did you do something between Grace and me?" Annoyed by his words, I directly slapped him hard across the face. Chloe hadn't expected me to dare to strike him, and she immediately shrieked, "Grace, are you insane? How dare you hit Brandon?" Julian immediately took my hand, massaged it gently, and said, "My wife, why wouldn't she? Chloe, you'd better recognize your place. Do you even have the right to question my wife? My wife hasn't even complained about her hand hurting from hitting him. If you say one more word, I'll have someone hit you too." Chloe cowered in fear, not daring to speak further. I looked at Brandon, whose half of his face was swollen and red, and said impatiently, "Brandon, we're over. It's purely because you were indecisive and wavered between me and Chloe, even abandoning me at our engagement party and doing such an absurd thing. From beginning to end, it was all your fault. Stop trying to blame others. Grace." Brandon's face was filled with her. As he asked weakly, "You always bring up that engagement party 5 years ago. But I already explained to you that I would come back and marry you. It was you who couldn't wait even a moment longer, leaving the banquet directly and going abroad. Chloe and I truly have no romantic feelings for each other whatsoever. It's just that she saved me when we were little and grew up with me. I couldn't just ignore her. Or is the loss of face and dignity from that engagement party really that important in your eyes?" Hearing such preposterous words, I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. "Brandon, your love is truly cheap. How is it that 5 years have passed, and you still don't know? Thanks to the bond between you and Chloe, no one in the entire city believed you would actually marry me. So my biological father, Mr. Arthur, already told me that the engagement party couldn't continue, and I would be married off to an abusive man 20 years older than me, the head of the family. Shouldn't I take the opportunity to go abroad? Or do you think I'm living too well?" Hearing this, Brandon stumbled back a step, looking around in disbelief. Yet he saw that everyone was clearly avoiding his gaze. Stop looking. I stared at Brandon and continued, everyone in the city knows about this. You, my former fiancé, are the only one who didn't know. Brandon, do you think you're still worthy of mentioning back then? Brandon shook his head and explained, no, that's not it. Grace, I truly didn't know about this back then. If I had known, Chloe couldn't stand to see Brandon like this any longer. She grabbed his arm and said, Brandon, enough. She's just a woman, and besides, Grace is already married with kids. Are you still going to keep harassing her? Brandon violently flung Chloe's hand away, then, as if suddenly realizing something, he tightly gripped her neck. No, that's wrong. So many people in the city knew. So you must have known too, right? You knew Grace couldn't marry me, eh? And would be forced to marry into the family. Chloe, you did this on purpose. You deliberately caused Grace and me to break up. Chloe, choked by his grip, struggled to breathe. Seeing about to be strangled to death, I couldn't help but speak up. Brandon, have you made enough of a scene? You have legs of your own. If you didn't want to leave, could Chloe force you? You and I are a thing of the past. Stop bothering me. Seeing me about to leave, Brandon quickly released his grip and stopped me, saying, no, I won't let you leave. Julian leaned close to my ear and whispered, they're too noisy. I'll just have the bodyguards deal with them. Lily is still waiting for us at home. Hearing this, Brandon immediately lost control, grabbed the knife, and waved it wildly, shouting, who dares to leave? No one is leaving today. Brandon, you think you're quite capable now, don't you? A reprimanding voice came from outside the door, and everyone looked in that direction. They found it was Grandpa and Brandon's parents, Robert and Eleanor, who hadn't appeared for a long time. Brandon's expression changed slightly. As soon as he opened his mouth to say Grandpa, Grandpa struck him down with a wooden club. You scoundrel! Look at what you're doing. Forcibly kidnapping your own aunt and cousin. Do you still have any respect for me? Eleanor saw what was happening and quickly spoke up. Dad, this must be a misunderstanding. The news of Julian's marriage was only known to our Taylor family. Brandon was cast out by you back then, so it's normal that he wouldn't know for a while. It's all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Grandpa scoffed coldly and reprimanded her. It's because you've spoiled him all these years that he's turned out this way. Even if Grace wasn't Julian's wife, she's still married with children. Does that give him the right to force someone into marriage? And you told me Brandon had reformed? This is how he reforms. Seeing William's anger, I quickly tried to calm him. Grandpa, I'm all right. Please don't get angry, you'll harm your health. Grandpa took a deep breath, patted my hand, and said, the family will definitely give you a proper explanation for this. As for Brandon, it seems to me he doesn't really want to return to the Taylor family anyway. And so, the farce came to an end. To show his apology, Grandpa originally wanted to take us back to the estate for dinner, but used the excuse that Lily was still at home with something to do, and politely declined, saying they'd visit another day. Back at home, Julian took my hand and said, Grace, I'll teach Brandon a lesson. Meeting's intently focused gaze, I couldn't help but raise my hands and hug him. I know you're afraid I'll feel wronged. But even though you now control the Taylor family, with Grandpa around, you can't go too far. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good for your reputation. I'm fine. Luckily, you arrived in time today. Neither nor I suffered, so don't worry. Julian shook his head, blaming himself. It's my fault for not coming to find you sooner. I sighed, cupped his face, and kissed him lightly, saying, it's all right, my Mr. Julian. I was the one who secretly brought Leo back to the country. What does that have to do with you? If anyone's to blame, it should be me. You've already done so much for me. I'm very happy and content. 5 years ago, to avoid the fate of an arranged marriage, I had no choice but to immediately take on a project and go abroad to escape the situation. It was because of this that I met Julian. At first, I was somewhat apprehensive of Julian. Rumor had it in the city that as handsome as Julian was, his personality was equally unfathomable. Back then, when Grandpa was gravely ill and the rest of the Taylor family was incompetent, it was Julian, the youngest at the time, who took over the Taylor at 18, single-handedly turning around its decline and even taking it to new heights. I originally wanted to avoid him, not just because of his reputation, but even more so because of his relationship with Brandon. Unexpectedly, the more I tried to avoid him, the more often I ran into him. As the encounters became more frequent, I noticed something unusual. But I didn't dare to ask until one time, drunk, with the alcohol hitting hard, I grabbed his tie and asked, Julian, do you like me? I thought it was a question that wouldn't get an answer, but unexpectedly, Julian pressed his forehead against mine and said, "Yes, so will Grace give me a chance?" Normally, I would have panicked and fled, but a drunk person's courage is exceptionally bold, and I actually agreed to his words. After I sobered up, I was about to deny it, but Julian showed up at my door with a video, demanding recognition of our relationship. After that, everything seemed to fall into place: dating, marriage. Around that time, Julian happened to have a disagreement with Grandpa. After their disagreement was resolved, he wanted to return to the country, but I was unfortunately hospitalized with an injury and then found out I was pregnant. Because my injuries were severe, I had to stay in the hospital to rest and protect the pregnancy. Even after 10 months of pregnancy, Lily was diagnosed with a congenital illness at birth, requiring continuous surgeries. Throughout this process, while I suffered, Julian didn't have it easy either. Knowing my personality, after Lily and Leo were born, he took on most of the responsibilities himself. "You've finally made progress in your career. How could you delay it for Lily and Leo? I'll handle everything. Go ahead and pursue your work without worry." With him single-handedly managing all the big and small matters concerning Lily and Leo, I was able to free up time to focus on my career. Just as Julian was about to speak, Lily rushed over and threw herself into my arms. "Mom, Lily missed you so much." I hugged Lily tightly and nuzzled her face, saying, "Mom missed Lily very much too. How are you feeling now, Lily? Is there anywhere you still feel uncomfortable?" Lily shook her head, hugging my neck, and said, "Lily is all better now. Uncle said that from now on, Lily can run and jump everywhere just like Big Brother." I hugged Lily and nodded, saying, "That's right. From now on, our Lily will also be a healthy child." Coincidentally, tomorrow, Dad and Mom will take Lily and Big Brother to see Grandpa, okay? Seeing his distressed expression, I took his arm and said willingly, "Julian, I know you're worried about me getting hurt. But this matter needs a complete resolution. I've already informed my brother and sister-in-law that they're willing to intercede for Brandon tomorrow. Can you leave it to me?" Julian stared at me for a while before saying earnestly, "All right. Go ahead and do it without worry. With me here, they won't dare to do anything." And Leo joyfully raised his hand and exclaimed, "Leo will protect Mom and won't let Mom be bullied by bad guys." Lily also raised her hand and said in a childish voice, "Lily will protect Mom too." The somewhat heavy atmosphere was broken, and I finally let out a relieved smile. Early the next morning, after Julian and I finished dealing with some corporate matters, we took Leo and Lily and rushed to the Taylor family estate. The moment Eleanor saw me, she immediately came forward to greet me. "Grace, are you truly willing to plead for Brandon?" Brandon's eyes immediately lit up upon hearing this. "Grace, you're willing to intercede for me? Is this true?" I nodded and said, "Brandon, of course I can plead for you, but I have conditions." Robert heard this and quickly said, all right, I'll agree to any condition you have. As long as you can make Grandpa change his mind and not expel Brandon from the Taylor family." Ignoring and the others, Julian and I took Lily and Leo and entered the living room together. Only after everyone had arrived did Grandpa come down from upstairs. Seeing Grandpa's expression was clearly not good. "Brandon, I originally didn't want you to return to the Taylor family, but is magnanimous and, worried about damaging harmony, is willing to give you a chance." Brandon nodded repeatedly and looked at me, saying, "I understand. Just tell me your conditions directly." I took a sip of tea and said softly, "Don't rush, the person is about to arrive." Just as I was saying this, Chloe was ushered in, and her first words were, Brandon, I knew you wouldn't abandon me, right?" Brandon suddenly stood up and reprimanded her. "Chloe, what nonsense are you spouting here? Who told you to come here?" "I told her to come." I interrupted Brandon and set down the cup in my hand. Yesterday's events angered the head of the Lynn family, who intended to hastily marry off Mississippi. I figured that since Brandon had such deep affection for Miss back then, he wouldn't just stand by and watch her marry the wrong man. "As your aunt, I naturally want to fulfill your wishes. Mary, that's your condition for returning to the Taylor family." Hearing this, everyone present was stunned. Brandon looked at me in disbelief. "Grace, you're telling me to marry someone else?" Julian immediately kicked Brandon to the ground, warning him, "Brandon, you should call her aunt. You're not worthy of calling her Grace." Robert and Eleanor were startled and quickly helped him up. "Brandon, Grace is already your uncle's wife. If you don't want to spend your entire life as a pitiable outcast from the Taylor family, then listen to Grace." "Mary, but I don't like her." Brandon clutched his kicked stomach, his eyes bloodshot. "Are you really going to force me to marry a woman I don't love?" Hearing this, Chloe immediately lost control. Don't love? Brandon, then who do you love? Loving? Your love is just repeatedly neglecting her for my sake. Even abandoning her at the engagement party to take me to the hospital? Brandon, don't you feel any guilt saying that? Just as Brandon was about to speak, Julian interrupted him directly. Have you said enough? Stop dragging my wife into your absurd business. Here's my proposition, either you marry Chloe in 7 days, or you can forget about ever returning to the Taylor family in this lifetime. Even if you don't care about yourself, you should at least consider your parents, who have exhausted themselves worrying about you. I instinctively looked at Julian, but he squeezed my hand and said, Grace, I told you. No one can bully you. Eleanor panicked and quickly looked at William. Dad, are you just going to stand by and watch Julian threaten us like this? William slammed his cane against the floor and scoffed. Your own son made this mess. Why do you expect this old man to clean it up for you? Are you marrying her or not? Brandon looked at Robert and Eleanor, who were quietly retreating, then got up and knelt before William, gritting his teeth as he said, I'll marry her. Planning a full wedding in just 7 days wasn't easy. The only difference was that I wasn't the bride. Realizing what he was thinking, I couldn't help but tease him. Mr. Julian, I've never seen you so petty before. Julian held my hand and said seriously, how is this petty? Back then, he abandoned you at the engagement party, almost ruining your life. Now that you've found a good man, of course we have to revisit the past. Or is my Grace feeling sympathetic? I pushed Julian away, saying dismissively, what's there to be sympathetic about? But if you do this, Brandon definitely won't let it slide. Something's going to happen at this wedding. Julian pulled me into his arms, chuckling softly. Then we'll see how bold he truly is. While the wedding was set, there were plenty of ridiculous incidents over the past few days. After and Chloe learned that the wedding was a replica of the engagement party 5 years ago, they each caused a huge scene. But once they found out Julian had arranged it, they didn't dare say much more. Chloe felt she had been wronged and demanded that Brandon comfort her more. Unexpectedly, when she went to find Brandon, she stumbled upon him drunk, with a group of women all over him. Chloe, having never tolerated such an insult, immediately started fighting with them. When found out, he actually slapped Chloe, calling her an embarrassment. Even so, Chloe stubbornly refused to cancel the wedding, instead monitoring Brandon's every move. With the two of them constantly arguing and making a scene, the wedding day quickly arrived. Many people attended the wedding, not just for the Taylor family's reputation, but also many who simply came to witness the spectacle. I had no interest in being a spectacle for everyone, and since I'd been having headaches lately, I simply stayed in my room. After resting for a while, there was a sudden knock on the door. Madam, something's wrong. Miss is gone. Hearing this, I immediately stood up and rushed towards the door. The moment I opened it, a cloth was suddenly pressed over my mouth and nose, and my consciousness slipped into a daze. I couldn't tell how long I'd been lost in the murky depths of unconsciousness, but when I slowly came to, I was in an unfamiliar room. Grace, you're awake? I turned my head and immediately saw Brandon crouching beside me. Brandon, are you out of your mind? Brandon walked over, gently pinching my chin, and said softly, yes. I am crazy. But isn't all of this because you pushed me to this? Grace, why wouldn't you listen to my explanation and insist on being with Julian? You know how much I hate him. If it weren't for him, I should be the head of the Taylor family. You're only with him to get back at me, aren't you? Seeing words grow increasingly absurd, I couldn't help but snap at him. Brandon, are you done making a scene? My being with Julian has nothing to do with you. If there has to be a connection, it's that without you, I would have gotten together with him much sooner. Brandon instinctively gripped my neck, roaring, Grace, shut up. I gasped for breath, continuing to provoke him. After all, because of me, I avoided him for a long time at first. Without you, I would have accepted him much earlier, and maybe Lily and Leo would already be in preschool. Brandon, you don't even deserve to be compared to Julian. Brandon's grip tightened, and just as I thought he would strangle me, he suddenly released his hand. Grace, you know I can't bear to see you die. But trying to buy time is absolutely out of the question. Julian won't find you. It was then that I suddenly heard the faint sound of ocean waves. I was on a ship? Brandon, what are you doing? What am I doing? Brandon dragged a chair over, sat down in front of me, and said, shouldn't you be asking Julian and yourself that? You forced me to marry Chloe, and then you deliberately suppressed me. Isn't it just to find out who the mole in the Taylor family is? Now I'm merely fulfilling your wishes. Hearing this, I clenched my hands. Brandon, I think you've truly lost your mind. So 3 years ago, when William was injured, you deliberately framed Julian, didn't you? Yes. Brandon stared intently at me, his gaze tinged with indignation. I even sent people to kill him. But I didn't expect someone to take that fatal bullet for him. I searched for a long time but couldn't find that person. That person was you, wasn't it? Grace, do you like him that much? Enough to risk your life for him? I turned my head away, unwilling to look at Brandon. He's my husband. If not for him, who should it be for? You. Julian installed a tracker on me. Even if you brought a jammer, it won't work for long. I advise you to stop now. As soon as I said this, the faces of those around Brandon immediately changed. Brandon stopped them, then turned back to look at me and said, so what? No matter how far Julian's reach extends, once our ship reaches international waters, it'll be useless. Grace, for the rest of your life, you're destined to be with me. I shook my head, staring at Brandon, and said, Brandon, don't you think about it? Why did you use Lily as an excuse to trick me into coming out? But I didn't ask a single word about Lily's situation. Before I could react, the knife, held close to my skin, severed the last bit of rope. I immediately stood up, kicked Brandon's leg directly, and pressed the knife in my hand against his neck. Nobody move. Everyone was caught off guard by this scene and seemed momentarily helpless. The moment Brandon moved, I immediately applied force, making a shallow cut on his neck that bled. Brandon, do you want to test my knife with your own neck? If you don't want to die, tell them to turn the ship around now. Sensing that I showed no hesitation, Brandon laughed in furious defiance. Grace, what are you doing? This ship holds more than just you and me. There are plenty of desperate men on board. Even if I tell them to turn back, they won't listen to me. Grace, you're destined to stay with me. As he was speaking, the room door was suddenly kicked open. I'm here to join you. Bodyguards quickly swarmed into the room, surrounding and pinning down everyone else inside. Brandon, too, was held down by 4 or 5 men, unable to move. Julian walked over to me, looking at the small cut on my hand with concern and saying, how did you manage to cut yourself? I shook my head, reassuring him. It's nothing, I pulled the knife out too quickly. Are and Leo all right? Julian nodded, replying, they're fine. Martha and the others are watching them. No one else can get to them. Brandon struggled frantically, saying in disbelief, Grace, you conspired with Julian to set me up? Julian pulled me into his embrace, looking at Brandon with disdain. Brandon, you lack basic common sense. Grace is my wife. This is called husband and wife working together. I held Julian's hand, staring at Brandon, and said, strictly speaking, this is called wife's lead. Husbands follow. This idea was mine. Julian was just acting according to my plan. Otherwise, how would I have gotten the evidence that you're the mole and thoroughly expelled you from the Taylor family? Although verbally disliked Brandon, he had never truly been able to cut off this bloodline. Otherwise, Brandon wouldn't have been so comfortable and secure these past 5 years, and few people would have even known he was expelled from the Taylor family. Brandon's body swayed violently, then he couldn't help but let out a laugh. I should have known, you've always been intelligent. How could I have been able to take you so easily? It's laughable that I still thought you had a shred of affection for me. I never imagined that you truly don't love me anymore. Grace, are you really sentencing me to death just because of that one time? More than once. I looked at Brandon frankly, saying seriously, Brandon, you should know my character. Every time you showed favoritism to Chloe without reason, it was like a knife to my heart. You may not remember this pain, but I, who was cut, certainly should. The engagement party was originally my last chance for you. Otherwise, why do you think I was able to leave the country immediately, avoiding the estate's pursuit? Evan's phone call, I deliberately had someone provoke her into making it. Brandon, I told you. With me, everyone's chances are limited. I linked my arm through Julian's, no longer bothering with Brandon's shouts, and turned to leave without hesitation. The private yacht waiting to pick us up had arrived early. Julian held my hand, leading me away step by step. I didn't pay much attention to what happened afterward, only occasionally hearing the staff mention it. William, upon learning that Brandon actually wanted to kill him and seize power, fainted from anger. When he woke up, he was greatly weakened and completely handed over everything of the Taylor family to Julian, no longer interfering in any of the Taylor family's affairs. With conclusive evidence, Brandon, under multiple charges combined, would spend the rest of his life in prison. Chloe, just like me 5 years ago, was abandoned at the engagement party and immediately caused a scene. Chloe's father originally wanted to dissuade her, but he was accidentally pushed down by the emotional Chloe and ended up in a vegetative state. The family was in chaos, but Chloe's illegitimate half-sister, whom she despised the most, suddenly rose to power, becoming the new head of the Lin family. Chloe herself was sent abroad to fend for herself. When came to find me with Lily and Leo, Stella happened to hand me the documents she was holding. "Miss, I'm here to fulfill our promise. The project, and 20% of the Lin's shares, are all here. Originally, Edward imprisoned my mother, causing her to die of sorrow after giving birth to me. Thank you for helping me get my revenge." I nodded and instructed someone to see Stella out. Julian walked over, glancing at the documents on the table, and said, "My wife truly is something else, doing all this quietly." I sat on the chair, saying softly, "Just payback." Without their help, how would Brandon have been so audacious? If one doesn't cherish it, then give it to those who do. Now, everything is finally resolved. Julian bent down to meet my gaze, a gentle smile on his face. "So, next, it's time for our family to live a good life together. Grace, I told you. We will have a very happy family together." I looked at Lily and Leo running on the lawn, then at Julian, and said, "Julian, I don't think I've ever told you something. Every day since I've been with you, I've been very happy. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your views, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.